Licking good, which is the slogan of KFC, right? So my name is Colonel Harlan Sanders. Well, to be precise, I'm not Colonel Harlan Sanders. I'm Colonel Harlan Sanders' ghost because Colonel Harlan Sanders passed away in 1990. But I'm here to tell you the story of how KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, now is spread over 23,000 restaurants in 123 countries. And you might think that, oh, this is a great story. He's had a lot of success. But I want to tell you, I've had more setbacks and more failures than successes in my life. I've been through so many ups and downs, and I have changed jobs so many times that people thought I was a rolling stone and would never succeed. But still, I made it. So, this is the story of my life as written and produced as a stage play by Henry Dowell called Finger Licking Good. I was born in September of 1890, a long time ago. And my father passed away when I was just 5 years old. And my mother, happy Mother's Day, brought us up, me and my two little siblings, and I was the oldest of the three. She brought us up all by herself. It was a tough time for her, and she had to work really hard to bring us up. She took up a job in the neighboring town, and often when the hours were long, she would stay over there because she trusted me to take care of my brother and sister, to get them into bed into time, not to burn down the house, to run everything. So I started cooking at a very young age. By the age of 7, I was making dinner for my siblings. When I was 16, I left home to join the army. And they put me on a boat and sent me off to Cuba with 1,500 mules. But with all that rocking of the boat and the stench of 1,500 mules producing mule excrement, it made me sick. The best thing about getting into the army was getting out in 4 months' time. So if you think that that's where I became a colonel, you're making a very common mistake. Then at 16, I became a fireman. I joined the railroads and I was just shoving coal into the rail engines. I thought it was a very exciting job, and I was doing that with great thrill. But at the same time, because I had a few friends who were lawyers, I started doing a correspondence course on law. Not bad for someone who only had a 6th grade education, right? But my chance came. Once, several years later, while I was still working for the railroads, I saw a flagman running around the track saying, "There's been an accident, there's been an accident." Now, I knew exactly what would have happened. There would have been an accident downstream. There must have been many injured passengers, most of them blacks. We call them African Americans now. And the railroads will send a claims agent there and get them all to sign a waiver so that they can pay them just $1 or $2 depending on how much blood they had on their clothes and get away clean. So I decided to do the opposite. So I got out of my railway overalls, got into my suit, grabbed my briefcase, and I ran to the accident site. And sure enough, the claims agent had started at that end. I started at this end, and we met somewhere in the middle. And I got all the passengers to sign me a power of attorney by which I could represent them to the insurance company. And I got them huge claims. My commission alone was $2,500, which is not bad in those times. But naturally, the railroad fired me because I was fighting against them. No problem. I decided to become a full-time lawyer. But even that career was very short-lived. You know what happened? It was a very sad incident that happened. One day, a lawyer and his client, his own client, got into a fist fight in the courtroom in the presence of the judge. The judge was so annoyed, he debarred that lawyer for life. I was that lawyer. What can I do? That SOB of a client hadn't paid me. I actually had to beat him up. Anyway, that was the end of my medical career, my legal career. But then I joined Prudential Life Insurance. And mind you, that was the time, 1918, 1919, when the Spanish flu was there, the last epidemic that we heard of. And it was not bad for the insurance business. Prudential is reputed even till today because at that time they paid out $20 million, a lot of money in those days, as claims during the Spanish flu. So that actually did a lot of good for the insurance business. And I did very well. But like with everything else in my younger days, I got bored after a little while. So I quit. And then I joined the Michelin tire company. In those days in the 1920s, everybody was buying a car. Even people who didn't need a car were buying a car. And a car had 4 wheels and every wheel needed a tire. So I figured this would be a good business. And so I was going from fair to fair, carrying samples in the boot of my car and selling those tires everywhere. Then once I was on a bridge close to my home, traveling in the car, and the bridge collapsed. I survived, naturally, but I lost my car and I lost all the samples with it. And with that, I lost my job. So I was back on the highway, hitchhiking wherever I had to go. And one day I got a lift by a gentleman in a huge Cadillac. And it turned out that he was the general manager of Standard Oil Company. Standard Oil is the mother of all oil companies. You know, all Chevron, etc., came when Standard Oil was split up. At that time, it was the big oil company. And he got very impressed chatting with me. And he suggested that there was a gas station in Corbin, Kentucky, which wasn't doing too well. Would I like to run it? Oh, would I? I was 39 years old. I took it up. And really, it was at Corbin, Kentucky, in that gas station, that I made three very significant innovations. The first was, as soon as an old farmer drove up in his station wagon there, I would clean his windscreen, fill water in his radiator, dust off his footboard. People remember that kind of service. Soon I was pumping more gas than any other gas station in Kentucky. While talking to my customers, I realized that the truckers and businessmen who passed through my gas station were complaining that there's no good place to eat on this highway. Now, I've been cooking since I was 7 years old. So I decided to put out my family's dining table in the gas station. And every night I would cook dinner and put it out there. If people ate, it was great. If not, my family consumed it. And if they ate, then I cooked for the rest of my family again. And soon I had truckers, business people, tourists sitting side by side, enjoying dinner. And I put up a big neon sign which said, Sanders Cafe and Service Station. And the third innovation, which was really the most interesting, was a hardware guy called me and said he had a new invention, which was like an airtight pressure vessel that had a pressure release valve at the top. You know, you guys in India must know it pretty well. I think you call it a pressure cooker. And as I roam around India during this lock time, I think that whistle of the pressure cooker and the coil cooing are the most significant sounds of the lockdown. Every home has a pressure cooker, but in those days it was new. And this one was for frying. In my restaurant, fried chicken was the hottest selling dish, but it took very long to cook. So I wanted to find a solution. So I took home this pressure fryer, went to the kitchen, threw in some chicken and some flour and some herbs and spices and tried some experiments. And guess what? It was goddamn awful. It was terrible. But I'm not one to give up. So I tried again and again and again, this combination, that combination, this and that. And finally, I managed to get a combination that preserved the flavor of the chicken, trapped the moisture inside it, and with this combination of 11 herbs and spices, made the chicken melt in your mouth and make it finger-licking good. Till today, that recipe in my handwritten notes is framed at the KFC headquarters. I called this Kentucky Fried Chicken, and it was a huge hit. And it did very well. My restaurant business was booming. And at the age of 45, the governor of Kentucky honored me with the title of Kentucky Colonel for my service to the community and serving good food. You know, it's not such an important thing. It's like the sheriff of Bombay. It's not to be taken too seriously, but I decided to take it very seriously. And I started calling myself Colonel Sanders. And I adopted this persona where I wore white shirt, white jacket, and this black Western string tie for the rest of my life. It's still today on the logo of every KFC packaging that you buy. And so I assumed this personality and I became Colonel Sanders. Once in a court case, a rather rude lawyer asked me and said, Colonel Sanders, were you ever leading a regiment in the army? And I said, no, sir, I was not. Then what kind of a colonel are you? He said. I thought for a moment and told him, you know, the colonel before my name is quite like the word honorable before your name. They both don't mean anything. Anyway, my restaurant business was booming. And, you know, maybe I could have carried on like that with just one single restaurant, Colonel Sanders Cafe and Service Station. And it was doing well. But when I was 65 years old, mind you, 65 years old, when most people hang up their boots, the government built a highway that bypassed Corbin altogether. The business at my cafe just collapsed. And I had huge debts to pay. I was divorced and I had alimony to pay. Oh God, that were bad times. I had to sell off everything. I sold off the restaurant, the furniture, everything. At the end of it, I had a check of $105 from Social Security. Now, you would have imagined at this age, I could have just gone and walked off into retirement and, lived off Social Security, but no, not me. I knew that there was something that I could do very well, which was I knew how to make the best fried chicken in the world. So I got into my car with my pressure fryer and my mixture of herbs and spices and went from restaurant to restaurant, from city to city, teaching chefs in the kitchen how to make Kentucky Fried Chicken. And then coming out to the restaurant and talking to the customers and telling them how great that chicken is. There were two things I always did well: cooking and selling. And that's what I kept at. So I went and tried to franchise how to make this Colonel Sanders Kentucky Fried Chicken to restaurants all over the United States. It was very difficult. To save money, I was living in my car, sleeping there, shaving and shampooing at gas stations, going from restaurant to restaurant. The US is a beef and pork eating country. Nobody eats chicken there. So many people were very skeptical that it wouldn't work. But I slogged at it and slogged at it. And by the time I was 75, 10 years in this business, slogging hard at it, there were more than 600 outlets in the US that was selling Colonel Sanders Kentucky Fried Chicken. And for every chicken they sold, I made a penny. And that was a lot of money. And at the age of 75, I sold the company to Massey and Brown, and they took it worldwide. And even after I sold the company, they retained me as the brand ambassador, and I continued to work with them, appearing on television, going on road shows, talking to customers in restaurants, in my white jacket and my white tie and my black Western tie. And I went around telling them everybody the magic of it, and they retained my face on the packaging till today. One may fight retiring from a job, but you can't fight retirement from life. Eventually, in the year 1990, I got acute leukemia and I died, and they buried me in my suit and my persona. And now my ghost has still not retired, and I'm traveling around the world spreading the message of Colonel Sanders' story, especially now during this lockdown. If some of you are concerned, especially you young people, are worried about this lockdown, and you've lost your job, or you've taken a cut in salary, or your business is losing money, I want to tell you, prepare yourself for a long winter, but the future is very bright. When the economy rebounds, opportunities will abound. Think of what happened to me. If history is any lesson, then I went through the Spanish flu, and after that, the automobile industry just boomed. The electricity and air conditioning was everywhere. We saw a period of fantastic growth. And why not imagine the same thing will happen now? Yes, it's going to be a difficult 18 months, but there is a great future ahead of you. And finally, I want to also tell you, everybody has someone in their family who keeps failing at whatever they try. Maybe it is you in your family who has tried several things and never made a success out of it. And we tend to be harsh on these people. Just because they haven't had a success, we discount all the efforts they're taking and all the chances they're making. And I just want to tell you that I came across an old Indian saying, and it's in an Indian language, so maybe you can help me. That for all these people who we are being harsh on, I would like you to tell them this message. And it says over here, and help me translate this. It says, apna time, apna time aega, apna time aega, apna time aega. Thank you.